Elden Ring has got to be one of my favorite games ever, and I'd give it an easy 10 out of 10 for the base game. And ever since the release, everybody has been craving more content, and when the first and most likely only DLC was announced for Elden Ring, I knew I couldn't do a normal playthrough, especially with my challenge run track record. Yes, let's go! Let's go! So I pre-ordered Shadow of the Erdtree and looked at the requirements to even get access once launch approached. I saw that Mohg and Radahn were going to be necessary to go into the Realm of Shadow. First, I started with Mohg. Luckily, I've practiced him a ton, so besides the annoying heal and overall length of the fight, it was an easy first try. Let's go! For Radahn, it was a little more of a challenge. At the start, I'll be honest, I got pretty cooked, but after a few attempts, I got a good handle on the best damage strategy, and just like that, the DLC requirements have been fulfilled. After defeating Radahn, I went into the hole that he created and killed the Mimic tier that I'm only going to allow myself to use for side bosses. Before continuing this video any further, I'd like to quickly ask if you could subscribe and give this video a like. Anyways, back to the video. The day is June 20th, 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, when the DLC finally launched on PC, and I immediately got into it not knowing what lies ahead. Oh gosh, here we go guys, here we go. From the base game, I had no idea of the difficulty FromSoft was going to put into the game, and using bare fists don't help our luck much either. I made my way through Gravesite Plain and just admired how beautiful this DLC really is. Yo, this place looks fire, bro. After a little bit of exploring, I found a couple of Miquella's crosses and Erdtree fragments, which if you don't know, increase our damage and defense by 5% each level, and when we're using bare fist, I'm sure this will come in handy for later. I went looking around one of the first areas of the game and realized that the damage that these basic enemies do is ridiculous. Bro, I did half my health bar! After a little bit of exploration and some dumb deaths, I made it to the first boss encounter, the Divine Beast Dancing Lion. He seemed pretty scary in the trailers, but I had no clue what he was capable of. I'm cooked, bro. I'm absolutely cooked. What the heck, man? Between quick movements, wind attacks, 22,000 health, and 3 phases altogether, this boss showed me that somewhat easy difficulty I thought this DLC would be was a daydream. He jumps at you with crazy speeds and bites at you before you can even realize an attack is happening. Not only that, but our amazing 8 damage makes us appear as an absolute joke to the apparent first boss of the game. After trying and failing many times, I finally understood that my current Erdtree level was not sufficient for the main game boss. While looking around for more fragments, I found a little cave which near the end had a mini-boss, which seemed like a great place to start because he surely can't have that much HP, right? Well, if 15,196 health is not a lot, then sure. It ended up taking me 30 minutes to defeat him with my Mimic, and at the end all I got was a stupid summon that doesn't help this run whatsoever. Next up I headed to Castle Ensis, which felt like a complete maze to traverse. After about 15 minutes I found a fall gate with Rellana in it. Her first phase is super quick and pretty difficult to understand. She runs at you throwing every sword attack known to man, and our damage to our health bar is completely atrocious, even with the parry strat I had in mind. Okay. 5? Okay, this might not be bad. Okay, yeah, we're cooked. That's not happening. And while on the topic of damage, I have to say, every boss in this DLC has a crazy inflated HP pool. Rellana has a whopping 29,723 health, more than the literal Elden Beast. The good thing about using the parries in this fight is that I have the Crimson and Cerulean Dagger Talisman, healing me a little bit of HP and FP after each critical. Using that strategy, I practiced her first phase for over 11 hours, learning that keeping my distance from her gets me in the right position to usually not get hit and get the right timing for a parry in. After getting the hand of phase 1, we reached phase 2, and that's where the real fun happens. She gets fire, magic, more daggers, double moons, all the works. The first attack I had to learn is when she comes running at you with a flame sword attack, but you can pretty easily dodge through this with enough practice. Now, one of her more annoying attacks is when she shoots 4 magic arcs at you, the reason being the 4th one hits you consistently if you're too close to her, and even with good magic resist, it does a ton of damage. The rest of her attacks are mostly recolored versions of phase 1 moves, which dodge the same, but if you get hit, do a lot more damage than the counterparts. It took a lot of practice to get comfortable with the fight, but when I did, I felt ready. One of the things scaring me from this fight in my practice runs was this maybe glitch, maybe not a glitch attack, where she puts her glint blade daggers up right before she does the double moon attack, and normally they'll end up hitting you, stunning you, then all the moons hit you in a row, completely destroying your health bar. After feeling fully confident, I gave the fight my first true attempt. The run went pretty smooth for the most part, but I missed her moon attack with her only having 15% health left, and 3 hours into the fight. I was pretty bummed out about that, but one of my friends actually told me that this fight is actually optional, so I went the other way around and explored the other half of the map. I was gonna continue, but I practiced the boss for so long that I thought it'd be a waste if I didn't kill Rellana, especially since she's a remembrance boss. I grabbed all the Erdtree fragments and Scadualdus, and picked up the Spelldrake Talisman +3 for a ton more of magic defense, and gave Rellana another try. I'll be honest, the fight was pretty close because I made some questionable decisions near the end of the fight, but even then, we did it. Time to beat, 1 hour and 56 minutes.
Oh, let's go, dude. Oh my gosh. Holy crap, I literally had 5 HP.
Now with Scadualdus open the intentional way, we can go to the east side of the Shadow Keep so that we don't have to fight the Golden Hippopotamus. And after a lot of deaths, jumps, levers, and parkour, we make it to Messmer's boss arena for the first time.
That tarnished, it seemeth.
And the best part is that we literally get destroyed instantly.
Oh. I was full HP.
But in all seriousness, Messmer is such a cool boss. His attacks are super delayed, but extremely stylish. To begin, he does a leaping fireball attack that reminiscence of Melania's Bloom, but a lot easier to dodge. Just roll the initial drop and the explosion. The next most common attack is what looks like to be a fire veil that if touched does tick damage. Then he follows up with a spear lunge into sword swipe, back into spear lunge again, which is pretty easy to dodge if the timings are learned. The rest of his basic attacks are pretty easy, like the spear throw and the lunge up to down attack, but in phase 1 he still has 2 attacks that are somewhat difficult to dodge. The first one is a fire flurry that heavily relies on your distance with him, but if everything is good you can simply dodge forward and back. The last and more seen as difficult one is where he goes up in the air and does a swing attack followed by a bunch of fire attacks that all can be outran except the last one that has to be dodged, then ending with an attack that has to be dodged with spears coming out of the ground. Overall, phase 1 isn't too bad in terms of dodges, but the problem is we do about 28 damage per 2 medium attacks, which isn't completely terrible, well, until you realize that he has 39,000 health, which is more than Radagon and the Elden Beast combined. Since we do so little damage and have to survive for so long, I grabbed the Flamedrake Talisman +3 and put on the Fire Prelate set for a huge increase in fire resist. Even with the struggle of damage that both we output and that Messmer outputs, we eventually make it to phase 2. He rips out his eye and gains the ability to transform into a snake, largely hitting the arena, and doing massive damage if not correctly dodged. Luckily, with enough practice of the timings, the snake attacks become pretty easy to avoid as well, and at the end you always get a chance for at least one hit, which usually is a critical for it being a headshot. He doesn't always stay as a snake though. When he goes to his normal form, he does essentially the same attacks except for this weird spinny roll that's super easy to dodge and doesn't really change the fight in any way. The last notable attack, and the one that got me to fairly low HP, is his special attack in phase 2, where he summons snakes everywhere and they can easily kill you if you're not careful and dodge them. Luckily, you can pretty much just run to the left and avoid it entirely, but the problem lies in where he starts it. He likes to do it when he's in a normal form fighting you on the ground, and when he's close up. And at the start of the fight, he does a huge AoE near him, which takes a huge chunk of your HP off and stuns you on the ground, making it so you don't have enough time to run away from the rest of the attacks, getting your HP fairly low if he does it at a bad range, and especially if you're not good at improving. Other than that, I got him on my first real attempt. Time to beat? 3 hours, 41 minutes, and 24 seconds.
Oh my gosh, let's go. Holy crap. Dude, we actually did it. What the heck, man.
With Messmer defeated, we follow Grace and head to Ra Ancient Ruins, and take a look at the next boss in line, Romina, Saint of the Bud. Romina is a scorpion-like boss who inflicts scarlet rot with most of her melee and stinger attacks. She has a fun 36,000 health, which at least is lower than Messmer's. Her movements are very weirdly flowed and give very small room for error. When looking at my options, I realized I could parry her and do a decent amount of damage, well, at least in comparison to my 20 damage for a normal heavy. And the best part is she only takes 1 parry per critical, which makes it a pretty viable damage solution. The only problem is we can only parry her on her sword swings that in the grand scheme of things aren't really used nearly as often as her scorpion attacks. Luckily, the 1 damage challenge made me very patient, so the only issue here is survivability. When first fighting, I didn't do great at dodging the scorpion movements, but over time I learned the best ways to tackle each part. After a couple of tries, I got her to phase 2 where she gets her actual rot attacks. Her first one being with her giving a huge rot AoE if you're near her, and a bunch of butterflies all over the arena. To counter this, you can simply walk into the part of the arena where there's no butterflies, making you take no damage. The second and more annoying attack is when she does 3 sword swipes and leaves a trail of butterflies to avoid. The first run that got into phase 2 sadly was lost because I was playing way too aggressively and took way more hits than my flask could recover, and the worst part is that she only had 10% left. The next run was going pretty well until I got grabbed because I was trying to skip a song on Spotify, and I instantly got rotted. Of course, unprepared me forgot to bring boluses, so I had to try to out-heal it, which somehow worked with only the cost of 1 flask, and eventually she was defeated. Time to beat, 1 hour and 51 minutes.
I think this might be it. Yep. There we go. There we go.
With Romina defeated, we can burn the sealing tree and transport to Ener Elim, making this run officially endgame. That might sound fun and all, but the next enemy is the worst, or enemies rather. After getting beat up by some overpowered holy mages, some dumb birds, and fall damage,
I'm gonna die from this. Well, you know what? I don't really know why I thought that was gonna work.
we can make our way to a very, very fair 3v1 NPC fight. At first I had some hope, but that ran out real quick.
I'm dead. Just kill me.
Even with my Mimic max level, he couldn't last for more than 2 minutes in the boss arena. Not only that, but each NPC had at least 10,000 health and a cheeky heal at half. And don't even get me started on trying to get damage on them while they're being chased by 3 other people. I seriously tried for so long to look for a way, but eventually me and my chat agreed that this fight really isn't possible bare fists. And even if it was, it would only take a bunch of backstabbing luck and not skill. I didn't want to skip anything in this run, but there's seriously no choice here. I used a weapon and got my swift revenge on this terribly designed fight. Onto a more fair boss, right? Well, we made it to the Divine Gate where the final boss stands. Honestly, I didn't even think getting this far would be possible with the new added difficulty of the DLC, but here we are. I walk into the Fog Gate not knowing what to expect, and see Radahn, back to life with a glorious health pool of 46,000, more than the Fire Giant. I quickly remembered all of the other YouTubers' remarks that said the final boss is a whole different ball game and that bare fist killing him is almost impossible, but I have to try. The cutscene ends and I'm trying my best to dodge, already doing pretty terrible in phase 1. He has a bunch of quick and somewhat delayed sword swings, which some resemble the attacks done on normal Radahn. Most of the sword swings are decently easy to understand except for the stupid scissor one that I really never got good at. He also has a meteor attack that can be pretty easily jumped past if you make enough distance for yourself. Even though the attacks didn't seem impossible to fully learn, one thing stayed in my mind. It felt like never-ending combos where I couldn't get any damage in, and when we're doing essentially nothing to his health, that makes the fight even worse. Fortunately, one of my friends told me that you can actually parry him, and I was pretty surprised because you can't parry normal Radahn. And when I tried to do the timings, it seemed to make a lot of sense to me when you're supposed to parry. For example, when he's about to stab you, parry. When the sword reaches you, parry, etc. Eventually, I was pretty confident with phase 1, but truly had no clue what came next, and when we reached phase 2, only 35% of the fight, which means the majority of the time is going to be spent there, so I hope it's not too bad. After a really cool cutscene, he usually starts with a similar attack to the Elden Beast's rings, where you have to move out of the holy circle before Radahn makes a huge blast of damage covering the arena. The good thing is he has some downtime after that, which usually allows for a cast of a healing spell. The next attack is where he goes for a hit twice, which is pretty easy to dodge through and stay close to him. Well, unless he hits you anyways because of the unevenness of the arena. The attack that I hate the most is where he brings meteors out of the ground, throws them at you, then proceeds to do a spam attack and hit you 5 times in a row. Then still has the audacity to still do a holy explosion. This one took a long time to figure out, and it really only works if you're in the middle of the arena. The way to do it is to run from the meteors as far as possible, then jump to the right. Then run straight to the right, and if it works, he'll miss the first 4 attacks. Then you have to roll the 5th, then delay your roll into the holy explosion or you'll still get hit. Very convoluted, but it just means in our final run we'll have to keep him in the center of the arena. Luckily, if you stay close to him and don't miss your parries, you can keep him in the state of doing normal phase 1 attacks. Well, unless he decides to teleport away or do the scrab, that by the way kills you if he does it twice, no matter what. But thankfully it's super easy to dodge it, so that shouldn't be an issue. Even though we're not doing horrible, I feel like there's more to be done here for defense, and at the current moment I'm only level Erdtree blessing level 14. The first trip we make is to the 2 hippos at the bottom of lower Skadu Altus, where I get the hippos to fight, so 1 free fragment, then was forced to punch the other hippo for 30 minutes for the other. Next we have to defeat a side boss, Ancient Dragon Man, to get access to the Jagged Peak and Karo's Hidden Grave. This fight really sucks since he has 19,000 health and heals at 50%, but at least I was able to get backstabs and parries. But even with that, it took 59 minutes just for a side boss. After that, I collected the first fragment from Jagged Peak and was able to get the hippo from Karo's Hidden Grave to die to a boss. Next up is another hippo in raw ancient ruins. This time I used my mimic to fight him, but it still took a fun 31 minutes and 12 seconds to defeat. Last but certainly not least is another side boss, Jory Elden Inquisitor, who gives us access to Abyssal Woods, and again has a very lovely health pool of 30,000. The good news is you can easily backstab them, but the bad news is that they spawn summons 24/7. Either way, after an exquisite hour and 49 minutes, the suffering was over. After that, we were finally able to get the 2 fragments from this church and 1 more from this tree. With that, we're able to get to level 17, with the rest being from the Golden Hippopotamus and Commander Gaius, and there's no way I'm going to fight those guys at the moment. So I tried to do a zip to collect the chalice with 5 fragments in it, but was completely unsuccessful and told that it's almost impossible to do a zip in the DLC because of the FPS drop issues. So I did what I had to for my best chance at Radon. I glitched in the rest of the Erdtree fragments and got to level 20. This might seem like cheating, but I plan on killing those bosses later on in another video anyways. And to make it seem better, my damage only went up by 4 per parry, and my defense by 1%. Finally, I grabbed the Golden Braid for a ton of holy defense. After a couple of sad deaths, I made it to 50% where he gains this insane combo that for some reason is pretty easy to dodge. Besides that, nothing changes until he only has 25% health left, where he becomes the meteor like in phase 2 of his normal fight. Luckily, by running to the edge of the arena, it rarely hits you. With this, I got all the way to only 20% left, and completely sold my run. That fight really devastated me, especially with how much time it took, but I know it's possible. So I built up the courage, and that night I gave it one more try. And just like that was the story of how I beat Elden Rings DLC bare fists.
Oh my gosh, we actually did it. Oh my gosh, we actually did it. Oh my god. Oh my gosh. Dude, I cannot believe that right now. Holy crap. We actually did it. I am so happy right now, dude. I can't believe I just did that. I literally can't believe I just did that. Oh my goodness. We're done. DLC bare fist completed.
It took all the patience, time, and skill I had to finish this, especially since it took me 1 week exactly from launch to finish the challenge. I truly hope you guys enjoyed the video, subscribe, and maybe even join the Discord to stay in the loop with the rest of these insane challenge runs. With that, I say goodbye, have a wonderful day, and should I do this DLC 1 damage only? I think it'd be a pretty cool part too.